What's shaking, everybody? Luke Dancy here, joined by the very funny and the very well read Mr. Matt King. How are you, sir?
Oh, is this today?
Sorry.
Oh, shoot.
Oops. How we doing, sir?
Great. How are you, Luke?
I'm doing good. It's so great to see you. I had a chance to see you at Blackpool earlier this year. I mentioned that earlier, and
Yeah,
it's nice for
we
us to be
didn't see
back home in
you
Vegas.
after that.
We're back in Vegas, both of us, and here we go, bringing the magic to people all over the world, man. Good times, good times. Yeah. So, thank you. I appreciate the time today. I know we
Thanks
all
for
do.
having me. What's the scoop? What are we doing?
Well, the first thing I want to ask you, and we're going to ask live questions. I've got some video footage and some questions from the guys coming in live as well. Guys, go ahead and do that. The first question I'd like to know is one of the things you're most well known for is howdy. I'm Matt King. Would you mind telling me and the rest of the guys where this came from? I'd love to hear the history on that.
Um, it's funny. I've been taking some of this time to write up stuff from write up tricks and life experiences from my earlier life. And so the first time I actually uttered the phrase howdy followed by my name was in 1979. I was auditioning. Lance Burton and I drove to this amusement park, Tombstone Junction in Kentucky, to audition. They were replacing this magician that they had who hadn't worked out. And so we met this guy whose job we were hoping to take, and he was really pompous. I mean, over the top, like full of himself. And I'm not going to use his actual name. He had a stage name that he used. I won't use it. I don't want to. I haven't heard anything about him in a long time. But just on the off chance, let's just say he said his name was Carmy. I'm just looking at the Carmy poster on the wall. But so he said, "Good day. I'm Carmy." And I was trying to make Lance laugh, standing next to me, and I tried to go exactly his polar opposite of that, and I said, "Howdy, I'm Mac." And Lance laughed, and we talked about it, and so that was the first time I actually ever said that.
Wow, that's amazing. That was the year I was born. Good God.
Shut up.
um, why don't we get a little bit more backstory on you since we're going back in time a little bit? I know more about your backstory than most do because I'm also from the East Coast. I've been around magic for a very long time. But the origins of you, before you came to Vegas, before you had your own show, where'd you come from? Where did Matt King grow up and get into all this stuff?
Yeah, I grew up I was born in a little town called Hopkinsville, Kentucky, but I grew up in Louisville, Kentucky, pretty metropolitan, area. Lived, kind of a nice part of town. Uh, then I went away to school in Minnesota, and while I was in college, I started doing like open mic nights. Comedy clubs started appearing, outside of New York and LA and Chicago. And so there was this little place called Mickey Finn's, and I'd been doing some magic shows, and I started going into this Mickey Finn's open mic night and doing shows, and I kind of got in on the ground floor of the, stand-up comedy spreading throughout the U.S. in the late 70s. And so after I graduated, I started in the summers while I was in college. I did this amusement park I was talking about where I did this audition. Lance and I did a couple of summers there doing 3 shows a day, 7 days a week. And then he moved to LA and got on the Tonight Show, and I was kind of getting my toe into these comedy clubs around the country, started to open up, and started out as a middle act in those clubs, and then progressed to headliner in those clubs. And I did that for, from the early 80s until 2000. And my wife and I moved to Las Vegas, or moved to LA from Kentucky in like 1988, 89, somewhere in there. And I was on the road 200 20 days a year. But I started doing shows in Las Vegas. There were 3 clubs here in town, and started working those clubs, 2 or 3 times a week, or 2 or 3 times a year, 2 or 3 weeks a year. And then started trying to figure out a way to get off the road. And so we moved to Las Vegas because I had a job, an offer for like 3 months a year. And that turned into a year. And then these are very broad strokes, but then that led to the job at Harrah's.
Wow.
So amusement park for 5 summers, comedy clubs for 10 or 12 years, and then Harrah's for the last 20.
20 years. That is amazing. I've got sound effects. Here's some clapping coming in for you. 20 years. That's
just you clapping. I didn't hear any other sound effects.
It's coming through, but unfortunately it doesn't pipe through to you. But it was there, I promise. It was there. 20 years. That is amazing.
20 years. I started out, there was an improv showroom at Harrah's, and so if you want to go into it, when we moved to Las Vegas, I was doing those clubs. The 3 clubs that were here, I started doing like twice a year. And then I was filling in at a casino called the Maxim for Nick Lewin, who was doing an afternoon show at the Maxim Hotel here in town. And I was doing whenever he would take time off. So I started out doing a few weeks a year filling in for Nick. And then he wanted to take off a little more time. And so I started doing 3 months a year. He would do like couple months, then I would do a few weeks, and then he'd do a couple months, and I'd do a few weeks. And then they offered me a full year contract. Nick left, and I signed a 2-year deal at the Maxim. And my wife was pregnant. We were very excited. I had this job to stay home. My wife was pregnant. We just bought a new house, and we were Vegas residents. And then two months into this 2-year deal, they announced they were closing that hotel. So my wife's knocked up, new house payment. I don't have any work booked because I think I'm going to be off the road for at least 2 years. And so luckily, though, I had another 2 months in the Maxim. And the entertainment director at the time at the Maxim, a guy named Bill Volkner, he's going to be out of work too, and he asked me if I minded if he tried to sell my show to other casinos around town. And because we had 2 more months of shows, we could, instead of just going into somebody's office and talking about the show that we would do for them, we could invite them to the Maxim and they could see the show in person. And it was a little casino off the strip, a small showroom, but they could see also, in addition to seeing my show, they could see how well Bill marketed the show and got people into this off-strip property that was hard to get people to. And so we invited different folks in, and Harrah's came through with an offer, and I only ended up not working for a couple of weeks in between.
Oh my gosh.
Harrah's opening. So Harrah's had a room, a smaller comedy club room that sat like 300, and they had like a curtain across the middle of that room. And initially I signed a 1-year deal with Harrah's, and my goal was, sometime before that 1-year deal to have to open up that curtain, go past the 150 or so seats that were in front of that. And so in less than a month, we had to do that. And then in 2 months, we were selling out. And after like 3 months, they offered me, extended the deal to 5 years.
Wow.
And so it worked out really good for me. I was really excited.
That is amazing. And we've got some great questions coming in as well, that if you guys have any questions for Matt, we don't have them for too long today. But I am keeping an eye on the chat as well. One of the things I was going to bring up, Carl asked, do you think comedy magic is more difficult to master? I know we're watching you in action. A couple clips have been popping up of you doing some things. When it comes to comedy magic, though, do you think that it's more difficult than just doing straight up magic?
Well, I mean, if you're not funny, yeah. I
Yeah,
think if,
true that.
you know, I think it's harder to get real. To me, it's harder to get really good at it.
Mhm.
Uh, because sometimes the comedy and the magic are at odds with one another. I mean, you can do jokes that step on the magic and magic that steps on the jokes, and getting those, I mean, I've really always wanted to be one of the guys who the magic is. I'm a magician first. I started out as a magician. I really love being a magician.
Mhm.
Uh, uh, and so I'm really trying to be, as powerful of magic as I possibly can, given the things that appeal to me, sleight of hand, and trying to be as powerful there, but also trying to get as many laughs. And when I was working those, it was perfect, sort of training ground were comedy clubs when I was starting out. And when I was working those and being a middle act, trying to progress. I mean, initially my goal was to be the highest paid middle act in America in those clubs, the Improv, Funny Bones, and I don't know whether I ever achieved that, but that was kind of initially the goal. And everybody always wants, when you're a middle act in those clubs, you want to move up to headliner. The money's way better, and the perks are a little better, travel and whatever accommodations, etc., and plus more time, stage time. But it was always my goal to have the club ask me to move up instead of me begging the club to move from middle act to headliner. But one of the ways to get moved up is to be funny. I mean, those aren't magic clubs; they're comedy clubs. So I was, in addition to trying to have really strong magic, I was trying to have, a lot of laughs per minute.
Sure.
And the people that book those clubs, sometimes they're not even in the room, right? So they don't see when the audience is amazed. What they hear while they're, ordering beer or paying bills or whatever, sitting in their office back behind the wall, all they hear is laughter,
Mhm.
or lack of it. And so if you don't have those laughs per minute and those big laughs, then you're not going to, I wasn't going to move up to headlining. Also watching, as a middle act, traveling around and working with a different headliner, a comedian, I saw how they worked on their acts and how they structured their acts. And it was a great training ground in that way. So to answer the question is, I don't know. I think everybody should do what they're best at. Some people, I mean, I worked for years doing a show with Lance Burton, and it worked as a two-person show because we were so different. The more, there you go. So the further I went toward the comedy and the further he went towards, the Lance Burton, of that manipulation act, later on as he got, doing a one man or, a big production show, I think he got more approachable and added more humor to his act or his performance. But initially, I mean, he was really, like, vampire-y. I mean, he was really going for like a sex appeal and suave persona. And I was going for the exact opposite. So I think working together helped us both in that regard too, to be able to diverge from each other.
Very cool. And you're mentioning, of course, Lance Burton, who I just brought up the picture. If you want to talk a little bit about this, of course, you guys come from the same, part of the country there as well, which is kind of cool. And now here you are both in Vegas, small world. But this picture here, about how old were you guys? I found this on your page, I think last week you posted this.
Yeah, my wife just, I think, found that and posted it on my page. I think that was when we were doing the amusement park. We had some photos taken for the second season we were there. So that's probably 1980.
Cool.
So we were 19 years old, probably. Wow. 18, 19 years old. And again, you can see trying to be contrasting styles. And
I love the tennis racket. Or is that yeah.
I don't know what, it's like, okay, he's going to hold a cane, and what have I got that's sort of similar shape? Couldn't think of anything else. I didn't. And a Viking helmet. Don't ask me why.
Love it. That's so good. Also, I mentioned Blackpool earlier. There was a funny comment Someone mentioned about, um, here it is. Freddie Wilkinson says, "Howdy, I'm Matt King. Cue 2,500 magicians cheering for 5 minutes. Mac made Blackpool this year. The audience were literally fighting to see him."
It was crazy. Yeah. I mean, I didn't really know what was going on. I was back behind, backstage getting ready, and my wife was traveling with me. And she doesn't do that very often. It's hard to talk her into going to a magic convention or a Matt King show in general. And but I had enticed her with a trip to Paris after Blackpool. But so she's backstage with me, and because a good show starts in the dressing room. And it's like pandemonium out in the audience. And this is like 10 or 15 minutes before the show's supposed to start. And I'm like, can you go out there and see what's going on? She goes out and she says, it's crazy out there. People are screaming at each other. And I guess people had left coats on seats to save spaces. And people had thrown them in the aisle and sat down. And then people started throwing beer on each other. And people are out in the entry, the lobby entryway trying to get in, and it was full, and people were pissed, and it was nuts. And then when I walked out and just, the show started so late, I think, and I walk out and say, "Howdy, I'm Matt King," and people, I mean, literally, I've never had anything like it. They cheered for he says, 5 minutes. And I sat down in a chair that's on stage. I sat down after a little while just because it's like, there's nothing to do. And then every time I said it again during the show, because I say it a bunch, every time I said it, it was pandemonium again. And I don't really know how that came about or why, but it was really gratifying. It was really, I mean, it would be a pain in the ass if it happened every show. But that one time, or a couple more times in my life, I would really be excited about it. But if 10 times a week that happened, I'd get tired of it. But
like, come on,
I'm not tired of it now. I was really pleased and gratified.
It was amazing. Yeah, they loved having you there.
Yeah, you were in the audience, right? Right.
I was there. Yeah, I was lucky to be there.
Were you actually in there? Did you get in?
Oh, I made it in. I was one of the artists technically, so they had a special pass, so I had to be able to.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So it was fun. And then speaking of fun, was it shortly after? Wait, was it after that or before that? Was the roast? This year has been so weird.
Nice, crazy, right?
It was before.
I think the roast was in January, right?
Yeah, that's right. Because Fielding started to get a little ill before Blackpool.
So yeah, it was before that. Yeah.
Yeah. So why don't we talk a little bit about that? I have no footage of that, for the record. I know that no one's supposed to.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, that was fun.
I believe footage exists, but I have not seen it. And I think some people, some of the roasters have requested not to have that out there. My cat just stood up in front of my camera here. There's Archie.
Yellow. So, I mean, this is not something that happens often, where they roast someone that's at the top of their game, obviously. So when it happens, it's a pretty big deal.
But I don't have any game.
Come on.
Done show since March 14th. That's the longest I'm sure I'm not the only one, but that's the longest I've gone without doing a show since I was in junior high school, I believe.
Wow.
So,
wow.
Since I was 14 or 15 years old. So it was, Vinny Grasso put that all together, and I told him I thought it was a bad idea, and I didn't really want to have any. I said, hey, I'm happy to sit there and have people make fun of me. I think I would love that. I really like that. I love the Dean Martin roasts because it wasn't ever, I never got the impression that it was mean. It was all loving. And so I really enjoyed that. And Vinny got a nice, really great group of folks to do it. And they were all hilarious. And if there's, I mean, I'm sure there's pictures out there of it, at least, even if not video. But the pictures I've seen, I mean, I am really cracking up. I mean, everybody was funny.
Yeah, it was great. And for those that don't know what we're talking about, the National SAM Convention was in Vegas in January, and they threw a roast for the one and only Matt King, and people like Chris Kinner were up there, Michael Carbonero, Fielding West, Amazing Jonathan, Harrison Greenbaum, on and on and on.
Yeah, Stephen Bargatze, Penn Jillette, the Magic Dragon, Nick DeFott. I'm probably leaving somebody out, and I'm going to make an enemy. But that might have been. Oh, and hosted by Mike Hammer.
Oh yeah.
And
yeah.
So.
And then at the end of that, Lupe presented you with a nice crafted chair, which is very cool.
Oh my God, it's beautiful.
Beautiful chair.
It's a beautiful, like, handmade Adirondack chair, and in the armrests are some goldfish inset into the wood. It's a work of art. And it turns out I was sitting on it the whole time, but they had it covered with this tacky lame cover, to make it look sort of throne-like. And then when they took that off, and it's like, oh my God, because I'm like, wow, this chair is not only horrible looking, the one, once it was covered, but it's really uncomfortable.
Well, I'm assuming it probably made it into the Matt King residence. There's probably hanging out in the.
Oh yeah, it's. I can almost see it. My office looks out through the office door, and then a big giant back window to the backyard, and it's a little bit off to the right, but cool. Yeah, it's out there.
And that leads me to my next little segue. One thing I know about you, I am a Vegas local, and you know how it is. Pretty much everybody knows everybody.
Yep.
And I haven't had a chance to actually spend time with you doing this next activity, but I've heard through the grapevine that you are a croquet aficionado. You are all about some croquet at your place. Is this true?
Yeah, we have some pretty vicious croquet in the yard here. We haven't done that either. But we were just talking about it. I mean, there's a group of us here in town that play, pretty regularly.
Nice.
Vinny plays, Jason England, Nick DeFott, a guy named Jacob Jacks, who's a street magician here in town, Michael Godot, the juggler from Lance's show. Those are kind of the main group, but every so often somebody new gets in for a night or something, and it's usually it's lit, so and it's usually at night because it's so hot here. And I'm sure our neighbors are like, what the fuck is going on over there?
It could be a whole lot worse than croquet. Good God.
Well, it's pretty, it gets dirty.
Okay.
It gets dirty, but also, I mean, the language.
You did ask me about that earlier. I wasn't aware that Matt King was so freely,
Yeah, I mean, I feel like my show is a pretty good representation of who I am, except for that fact that I am filthier than any other friend that you have, Luke.
So basically, you're the magic version of Bob Saget, basically.
Right. Yeah. Bob and I are, kind of buddies, and yeah, I would say that's right. Although, but Bob's act is really filthy. So so I think we're opposite, really. Bob's act is really filthy, and
the other side. Yeah, gotcha. You're speaking about being on stage. I've got some more footage I'm going to run of you being on stage. I'm looking through the questions as well. I've got some friends out there, so keep the questions coming in. I was going to ask you, being someone that has a one-man show, it's just you up on the stage. Of course, you have some help. It's not just 100% you, but as far as the performance goes, it's all you. And I was curious if you could shed maybe some advice on.
I'm very stingy.
What's that?
I'm stingy. I want all the credit.
Hey,
no, sorry, I interrupted your question.
No, it's all good, man. This is the Matt King show today, so you do what you need to do. It's all good. But yeah, maybe some advice on people that are trying to craft a show and maybe they want to do a one-man show, but maybe they're intimidated by the fact of it's just me on stage. Maybe you could talk a little bit about having a one-man show and what it takes to do that.
I think the desire to do it is very important, and I mean, I am stingy. I mean, I said that as a joke, but also I really do like, I also, I don't know. I mean, I don't have any advice about doing a one-man show or one-person show, really. I have advice about doing a show, and that's just to do them. I mean, that's the only advice that anybody ever really gives that's worth anything, and it's the hardest advice to take. Because all it really is being willing to do hard work and, drive overnight and stand on a bed of cinder blocks with a coffee can with a light bulb in it and with a crappy mic, and to 8 people, and then, get your $50 and drive to the next show overnight, and, sleep in a shitty hotel or whatever. But I mean, none of that ever seemed like work to me. I mean, it was always just exactly what I wanted to be doing. It was always exactly fun. And, but that's the key. I will say this. I mean, my show is not a big production show. So as opposed to doing a production show, I mean, my advice is, my show is really close-up magic done for, hundreds of people. And one of the things I feel like I've figured out over the years is how to make those small tricks play to 500 or 600 people. And partly that's, as the video you're watching now, you can watch her reaction to that. I mean, that fish can't be, seen very well. The showroom that's being done in is the showroom at Harrah's, and that's like 550 seats. And so the people in the furthest back corner hardly see that fish, but they can see her face, and her body language and her reaction to these tricks. And also I've learned over the years how to make my movements a little more broad when I'm doing smaller tricks, and make those tricks, I feel like, play to the back of the room. But a big thing is that person on stage with me and their reaction, which, I'm worried about going forward. I don't know how long it'll be before I can get people, first of all, I don't know how long it'll be before I can do a live show again. Right. Even when I do go back, I don't know whether how long before I'll be able to have people from the audience on stage with me. And I think that really does not bode well for my show, because I mean, so much of it is based on those people next to me. I think getting people on stage and being, and like, I don't remember this video, but if you watch her face, you can, when this happens, right? Yeah. That body language there is a big deal, right? For the audience to be able to experience that and make those smaller tricks seem bigger. Also, just what I did too, this is just a pet peeve, I'll just throw it in. She goes downstairs and I help her down the stairs. And I also help her up the stairs. And it's kind of a pet peeve for me to see somebody point and say, "Hey, you come up here and help me," and you stand there center stage when you could walk over to the stairs and help people up. And the same at the end of the show, you could stand there and bow like this, or you could help that person who made your show better walk down the stairs like a human.
Well said. There's the Southern hospitality in you right there. There you go.
Well, no, I mean, I don't know whether it's Southern hospitality, but it's just, there's also the fact that there is so much audience participation in my show that I don't feel like it's a good idea for me to be mean to people, right? Yeah. So I want that first person that who comes up, if I'm mean to them, I still have 5 more people to get up. And, I want people to understand that they're in safe hands and in good hands. So I try to not to treat them like props. I mean, and also I think that's what makes. I mean, I've been doing the show at Harris for 20 years, and the show doesn't change very much. But what keeps it fresh for me and makes the audience understand that it's fresh is the genuine interaction. I'm actually really talking with those people, and I'm really listening to them and reacting genuinely to them and to the audience, and anything that the audience does, I respond to. I try not to be on autopilot, and I think that's another way to be courteous.
Yeah, absolutely. People can smell it. They can tell if you're just.
That's right. I think yeah.
Speaking of moments, you're talking about some small things you like to try to do for your spectators. Chris Shepard would like to know, what's your favorite moment that's happened on stage, if there is just one, or maybe there's a couple of moments that you've always remembered.
I mean, there's a couple of classic stories that I've told 1,000 times that we can get into. But one that I haven't really mentioned that I was just thinking about a couple of days ago. I was talking to somebody, and this leads back to what we were just talking about with genuine interaction. I think there's some photos of this. Couple of the guys that worked for the show, I think, took some pictures, but I don't have them, and I wanted to get them. This is not my favorite moment, but one of my favorites that I haven't really talked about. I got a kid up for a trick, and I think before we'd done anything, he said, I'm a magician too. And I said, oh, really? What kind of magic do you do? And he said, they card tricks. And I said, oh, can you do one for me? And he says, you got a deck of cards? And so I have to give the kid a deck of cards, and I'm waiting for the trick. And he says, I need a table. And so instantly, I mean, without thinking, that's another benefit, I think, of doing a bunch of shows is that, I'm kind of open to anything. I feel like I've proven to myself over the years that no matter how far off the path, I can still find a way to finagle us back to where I want by the end of the trick. So instantly, I get down on my hands and knees, and this kid does this trick. I can't remember what the trick was. Something as boring maybe as like the 21 card trick, but the kid does the trick on my back.
Oh my God.
But also, I mean, I'm mic'd up, and the kid's standing there, and the audience, the audience can see that this kid is having a great time doing the trick, and I don't give a shit. I mean, and I can look at the audience, and I can also convey just, I try to convey just with looks or a word or two. I don't want to interrupt the kid's trick, but because also I'm trying to be nice to the kid, right? But I'm trying to I can look at the audience and roll my eyes, and the kid can't see, or I can say something to be a kind of a little mean, but in a funny way, and a loving way to the kid, as hurry it up here, whatever. But I mean, it was really a delightful moment. And one of the things I'm really going for, and that was one of those things, is when people leave, that I want them to say, hey, I was at the show where such and such happened. Mm-hmm. And some of the things are orchestrated. Some of the things that seem to be one-time only thing are orchestrated. But still, when people leave, I want them to think, I was at the show the time this happened. I want them to walk away feeling like they saw a show that no one else ever saw, even though the tricks are the same. And so I really try to be open to making it seem like it's different every time, even though the tricks are the same.
Love it. Yeah, especially I could imagine you kind of doing that, looking at it's almost like it was set up, how perfect that seems to be, where you're just like looking at the audience while this is happening on your back. I love that.
Yeah, and and so memorable things are also, like I told this story in Blackpool about uh, the Houdini challenge naked rope escape. Have you heard that story? You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know how many. I have no idea. What people, who's listening or watching, and whether they've heard it. But if you haven't, I do this bit where so the rope trick that you were just showing opens the show all the time, and I've done a version of that since I was 17. Over the years, it's evolved, quite a bit from the original. I routine that I kind of mashed up between George Sands's two manuscripts, Ropesational and Sensational Rope, and just added bits of my own, and it's evolved over the years. But anyway, I open with that trick, and one of the reasons I open with it is because those audience members are so important. I can do that trick and look out at the audience. I don't have to look at my hands, and I can see out to the audience, and the first person, and I during that trick, I mostly pick at least for three of the people for the show. I'll pick first. I'll look for a guy who's wearing a watch and is sitting at the right angles for the closing trick, and seems to be with his wife or his family, and because I find that a group of guys, sometimes the guy comes on stage and he's crappy because he's trying to show off for his buddies. But if a guy's with his wife or a date, usually he's a little less likely to be a dick. And, so I pick him first while I'm doing the rope trick, and then because I don't like to pick people from the same family, then I look for the woman for the first audience participant in the show. And and then I throw the rope to her, and she comes on stage, and I say, we're going to do the Houdini challenge naked rope escape. I want you to take off your clothes and tie me up. And I'm kidding. You don't have to tie me up. Throw the rope aside, and we do a card trick. So I'm working in this club in Knoxville, Tennessee, and the owner of the club calls me where I was staying that afternoon before the Sunday night show, and he says, hey, I'm bringing a date to the show, and I want you to get her on stage. And I'm like, his name was Barry Rosen. I said, Barry, I don't like getting people up that I know or that are friends of friends, because so much of the show, I told him just what we were talking about. So much of the show is dependent on those people's reaction. And if it's a friend or a friend of a friend, sometimes that reaction is off. And he's like, no, come on, man. It's our first date. And I think it'll do me some good, if you know what I mean. And he was writing my check. So I agreed. So that night, I'm doing the rope trick, and I'm looking out and they're sitting on the front row, and this woman is in shadows, right? I can't really get a good look at her. Her face is kind of obscured. Usually you can see the first couple of rows, but the way she was sitting in the angle or whatever, I couldn't get a good look at her face, and she didn't seem to be reacting very much, no big reactions. And so, but I get her up on stage, and she's just the exact wrong person for this. Somebody I'd never have picked. Just the meekest little mouse of a woman. And when you're performing, you got what you're saying and what you're doing, and then there's a third thing, like a voice inside your head too, that you can hear very clearly, at least for me, another voice about talking to myself about what's coming up and what's going to, and so this voice in my head is like, this is disaster. This woman's terrible. I think if I say to this poor woman, take off your clothes and tie me up, that, she's going to cry. Right? It's just, she's so meek. And seems scared and doesn't seem like she wants to be there. And pissed at Barry for getting me into this. And so that pissed thing sort of takes over, and I say to myself, I hope she does cry. I'll serve him right for making me get her up here and ruining my show so he can make his date. So I say to her, take off your clothes and tie me up. And boom, she whips off her dress. And she's naked. And Barry's standing there taking photos of me and this stripper that he has hired to play a joke on me. And it's crazy how unbelievable it was that. First of all, I mean, I really like Barry, and I've kept in touch with him a little bit. This was almost, this was 25 years ago, more. But I would certainly never have put him as the one who could come up with something that hilarious. He didn't strike me as the type who would put together that kind of practical joke.
So good. So good. Oh man, I would have loved to have been in that audience.
That's maybe my favorite thing that's ever happened to me on stage.
Other than the Blackpool 5-minute chant.
I met my wife. She was a volunteer from the audience, and I pulled her signed card out of my pants. And,
true love.
And then, true love.
Is that true? You met your wife at a show?
Yeah. She was. It was in '83, before you were born.
No.
What's that?
No, I was born in '79.
Okay. All right. So in '83, she was in college, and I had been out of college a little bit. And while she was in school, she was waiting tables at Bennigan's restaurant in Louisville, Kentucky. And I think there's still a couple of those Bennigans. They're like, TGI Fridays kind of. And still a couple. It was a national chain. And so she was working there while she was going to school. And I got hired to do a Halloween promotion for Bennigan's, doing close-up magic, table to table. And but before I went in to do that, it was like 4 nights. The 3 nights prior to Halloween, and Halloween night was the big finish. And I was supposed to judge a big costume contest. Anyway, but I went in to they had like a staff meeting early one morning, and I went in to I did a little stand-up show for the whole staff, sort of to introduce myself and assure all the wait staff, et cetera, that I wasn't there to take their tips. I was there to help them, et cetera. Just kind of go over what I'd be doing. And so I got my wife up in front of that group and did this card trick for her. And when I was working clubs, and when I was doing close-up in restaurants, I kind of made it. I had a rule, just an internal rule, that I didn't hit on the wait staff while I was working. But the last night, she caught my eye. I mean, I didn't think it. I did the card. Sorry.
Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, that was my cell phone. Sorry, I'm an idiot. Please turn off all cell phones. So I didn't pay much attention after that, really, until the last night at the costume contest. And she came in with pink curlers in her hair and wearing a bathrobe and a National Enquirer stuck in the pocket of the bathroom, and a big pillow under the bathrobe on her ass, and a sign tacked to her butt that said "Urban Sprawl." And it really made me laugh. And so she asked me if after work she could, she told me that her tips had really improved that week while I was there, and asked if she could repay me by buying me a drink after work. And I said, well, if I could buy you dinner. And
Nice.
so we went out for dinner that night, and I think I moved into her apartment like, a couple of weeks later. that that joke, what do you call a magician without a girlfriend? Homeless.
Homeless, yes.
Yeah, and I was kind of the embodiment of that joke.
Now you're in Las Vegas on billboards, cabs, everywhere. So I think she's I think she made a good choice. Um,
Sorry.
you are blowing up. If you need to go, I was going to start to wrap things up anyway. I know I told you between 30 45 minutes, and we are a little bit over the 45 minutes here. So I was going to ask you one more thing, but if you need to go, we can go ahead and wrap things up. Not a problem.
That's actually both phones. One was my cell and one's my office number, and they're the same person. It's actually Stan Allen, so he can wait.
Yeah. Phone tag. You guys are playing phone tag.
Yeah.
There was some questions I wanted to ask. If some of the magic that I've been showing, I know that you've published a couple of things, such as the bag, with the head and some other stuff.
No, I never did. Don't say that. That's not out there. That's only for me.
Oh,
never been published.
Faux pas, I suppose.
Don't do that trick.
It's too good. It is good. My bad. And then the last question was,
almost nothing in my act is published. I mean, that's mine.
And that was the question: will you ever publish anything like the rope stuff or?
Yeah, I will. I'm working on it. I'm using this time off. I'm working on a big Mac King book.
Oh,
I mean, it won't come out until after I'm done at Harrah's, certainly. I mean, I really am trying to be the only one who does stuff that I feel like is mine to publish. I'm trying to hold on and be the only guy doing it until after I'm done with it. but yeah, I'm working on a big Mac King extravaganza book. I mean, it'll be some of those stories but also my entire act and other tricks too.
Wow, I had no idea about any of that. So
yeah, but that's hopefully years in the future.
Very cool.
But right now it's fun. It's been fun working on it, writing about it, and calling people from I've been talking to people from that time in my life, from the 70s and 80s, and writing up experiences and talking. So it's been fun reconnecting with some of those people.
Very nice. And one last question. This is something that I've seen pop up multiple times. Mark Barbary has the second part of the question, but he wants to know, number one, are your suits custom made? Are the famous Mac King suits, are they custom made?
Yeah, they are. If you look on the banner that you have, there's four different ones. So initially, I mean, I say in the show that they were my grandfather's, and now that's a lie. But initially, it was true. I have some photos, but quite old photos. Initially, I had gotten some suits out of my grandfather's attic, and I went through, I believe, 3 of those. But I mean, he'd already worn them, and I'm pretty rough on them. But I'm a pretty good, not great, but passable seamstress. So the customizations and stuff, pockets and all that stuff that need doing for me to do the tricks, I initially did myself on those suits. Lance and I used to joke that you can't be a good magician really unless you own a sewing machine. That's one of the keys. But then after those kind of got run into the ground, those real grandfather suits, I went to a costume designer in LA, and a woman that had made some suits for Lance, and he introduced us. And so she came. The suits that were from my grandfather weren't plaid, but Margaret Rose is the woman's name. Margaret Rose Custom Clothing Design. She I think she did one of Pee Wee Herman's suits and some other stuff too. I found out later. But anyway, I went to her, and she came the next time I was working. This is again in the late '80s, probably. Margaret Rose came to the show two or three, like 3 nights or 3 shows in a row at the Magic Castle. I got her into the castle one night. She came to all 3 shows. Then she made some drawings and whatever of what she thought it would be, and she sent me swatches of material that she thought would be good. And every swatch she sent was a plaid, and I had never considered that. But one of the things that at the time, Harry Anderson was a big deal, and so I liked the plaid because it kind of set me apart from him. Not that people were confusing us anyway. I mean, he was very famous, and I was very unfamous. But I didn't want people to think I was copying him. And if you were doing comedy magic at that time, a lot of people were kind of clones of Harry, I felt like. So the plaid thing I also feel like it set me apart. But that was her idea initially, and so grateful. And so she's made all the suits since then.
Very cool. So that was the other part of the question was, where did the whole idea for the suits come from? And now we know that as well from your grandfather. Kind of started the whole thing, and then it kind of morphed into what it is now. Very cool. It's actually why I wore this shirt today, no lie. I had another one on. I'm like,
I should be wearing a plaid shirt. Crap.
I tried. It's not the same shade, but hey, it's close enough. So this was in honor of Matt King today.
Yeah. So I'm looking at the banner that you have here, and so the blue one on the far right with me pouring the fish in my mouth, that was the second suit that Margaret Rose made. Okay. Then the sort of the burgundy one on the far left was the third one. Then there was another one but after that, and then the one on the left with me holding the fish glass in front of my eyeball, that was there. And then there was another one after that, and then the one with me spitting the fish, that was actually made by a local guy here in town, and it's quite a bit more subdued than the others, and that's sort of like sometimes every so often there'll be a corporate event where they're like, do you do the show without that big plaid suit? And they want it to be less hillbilly sort of, I guess. I don't know. So a guy made that for me here in town. And then there's a new one after that. So
okay, cool. Do you have any plans as we wrap this up 100% here? Do you have any plans once you're done?
I have no plans. I don't have any plans for tomorrow or the next day. Once I'm done with what?
What day is it again? Where are we?
Right? I don't know.
Would you ever want to go back east? Is where I was going with that. Would you ever, after you're done with Vegas, is this your home now? Or do you think that one day you'd want to go back home?
My wife's from Louisville, Kentucky, and so am I. We grew up there. And we have a little place there. And my wife and daughter used to go there for the summer every year and hang out with family. And we had always talked about moving back there when this was all done. But, the longer we've lived in Las Vegas, I mean, it's certainly this past 6 months has changed, the fortunes of everyone. And, who knows what this town will be like going forward. I think it'll eventually get back to the way it was or better. But, I don't have a crystal ball, and I don't know whether that's 6 months or 18 months or 2 years or whatever. So I don't know what the plans will be. But before all the COVID nuttiness, we kind of decided, no, this is our home now. We really love it here, and we've developed a lot of friendships and relationships here, and so we thought we would probably stay here. But I don't know how that will be in the future.
Okay. Yeah. I've got the itch, so I'm not sure what I'll do. I've been here for 13 years, not nearly as long as you. But I'm not at that point yet, so we'll see how that goes. But that's neither here nor there. So, yeah, Mr. Matt King, I want to say thank you for your time today. That's one thing that you cannot buy. You know, anyone can come to Vegas and go
Right
to your
now.
show, but you know, you can't have this. So, you know, sincerely thank you. And as you guys know, without it being said, if you do come to Vegas, you know, I was looking at your website earlier. Multiple awards. You know, it's an award-winning show. Matt King is a legend in our industry, as you all know. A lot of you saw him at Blackpool. And Matt King, on the way out of here, if people do want to keep up with you, when things get going again, you know, social media-wise, website-wise, where can they find you, keep up with you, and even if they want to buy tickets?
The best is like there's Instagram and Facebook and Twitter at Mac King Show, MacKingshow
Cool.
on all those, I think. So
very good. And I believe it's mattkingshow.com too, right?
Yeah, MacKingshow.com.
Yep.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right. Well, for me and Matt King, we're both going to get out of here. I want to say again, thank you to Mac. Stay safe, you and the family. You know.
Yeah. To all 6 of you watching, thank you.
Trust me, there were a lot more than that today. So thank you. And to you guys too, stay safe, stay good, and we will catch you all next time. For me, Matt King, we are out of here. Take care, everybody. We'll see you.
Bye, guys.